some new guideposts, Mr. President, not long ago, but the first document they issued was the CDC's position that it is best for our kids to be back in school. The CDC's recognized that it's a public health priority to have our kids back to school and in-person learning. But Mr. President, as you've also made clear, we're going to make sure our schools and our states have the resources to be able to safely reopen. And we're calling on Congress to work with us to appropriate another $105 billion. We believe that we can safely reopen our schools. We know that it's best for our kids. We don't want them to fall behind academically, but also we don't want our kids to miss out on the counseling that they receive, special needs services, as well as all the nutrition programs that are available just at our schools. And finally, Mr. President, I know that you've recognized from early on that getting our kids back to school is first a priority for them, but also it's important for working families. Only about 20% of single parents are able to telework. And so to open up America again, we got to open up America's schools. To put America back to work, we got our kids are back in the classroom. And so, Mr. President, I want to thank you for your leadership. It's great to be here with Secretary of Education, with Kellyanne, and all these remarkable teachers in particular. As you know, I've been married to a school teacher for 35 years. She's preparing to go back to the classroom this fall, and I want to thank all the educators who are here for all the hard work you've done through these difficult days and all the work that you're doing to get our kids back to school. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, Mr. President, thank you so much for your continued bold leadership through this crisis, and particularly with respect to getting kids back to school. It's been a privilege to travel with the Vice President to meet with educators, education leaders, and especially with parents and students to hear about what their needs are as fall quickly approaches. And so I'm just thankful to be here with this group today to listen and learn from you about what your needs are as we anticipate getting back to school. And Commissioner Corcoran, thank you for your bold leadership in Florida, really setting high expectations for all of the students and educators there. We know that for students and their families, they can't be held captive to other people's fears or agendas. We have got to ensure that families and parents have options that are going to work for their child and for their children's education. And so I look forward to this conversation as to how we can ensure that we do not have a one-size-fits-all approach, but that we do ensure every child has the chance to go on learning full-time this fall.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, Secretary DeVos. We're here mainly to hear from each of you today. Before I do that, I just wanted to point out that there is a fairly recent Kaiser Family Foundation Health Tracker poll that shows over 65% of America's parents are very concerned that their children will fall behind academically and socially if they don't get back to school. Having said that, we recognize that many school districts have already made a decision to either go hybrid or full-time virtual learning for the first month or two, or maybe longer. So our goal today, the President's goal, has always been, how do we reopen safely? How do we reopen soon, but how do we reopen safely? We also recognize that a number of teachers, particularly the 10% or so that are over the age of 60 in most of our schools, are concerned. So we have given resources and guidance that allows each of those districts to make those decisions, to maybe modify the work schedules of the teachers and other administrative staff that may be affected. But overall, we know that the risk is low for kids in contracting and being hospitalized, and of course the worst possible outcome, dying from COVID-19, but the risk is very high if they're locked down indefinitely. Nearly 100% of our 75 million students, K through college, left their places of learning, left those structures between the first and third weeks of March of this year. And we see that all situations were not created equally. The lack of digital assets was very obvious for many of our students, the lack of nutrition, the lack of social and emotional and mental well-being and development. But also we heard from many school administrators and teachers, they're concerned because roughly 1 out of 5 child abuse cases are detected in schools. So we have to also think about all that we don't know and all that is being lost for these children by keeping them locked down indefinitely. So in the interest of opening soon and safely for this entire country, Mr. President, we'd like to start with Elisa from Waukesha, Wisconsin. She's a single mother and a small business owner. And her son, Luis, is entering a public district school